The hum of the starship's engines was the only sound in the observation deck, a low, steady vibration that seemed almost meditative. Outside the reinforced viewport, the void of space stretched infinitely, dotted with the faint glimmer of distant stars. I had never thought the silence of space could feel so heavy, so thick, until the day the Queen arrived. Her name was Celera, and she was more than a monarch. She was a force, a living nexus of authority and mystery, commanding entire star systems with a sweep of her will. When she arrived aboard the Vigilant, the flagship of the Andari coalition, she carried with her a presence that could freeze the bravest of generals. And yet, in the hour we first met, her eyes, large, opalescent, filled with layers of emotion I could not begin to read, were searching for something or someone. I was the ship's diplomatic liaison, tasked with translating not just words but intentions, with bridging human and Andari understanding. I had met rulers before, some benevolent, some tyrannical, but none like Celera. When she first spoke to me, her voice was quiet, almost hesitant, a stark contrast to her towering, regal form. "Tell me," she said, her words deliberate and weighted with unspoken meaning, "how fares my daughter?" Time seemed to stop. I had anticipated many questions, discussions about trade, defense, and alliances, but not this. I swallowed hard, careful not to betray the turmoil in my chest. Her daughter, Liara, had vanished nearly a decade ago, presumed dead in a skirmish at the edge of the Thryn expanse. Official reports had painted her fate in stark, unambiguous lines. Lost.
Gone. Dead.
Yet here stood Celera, hope flickering in her alien eyes, asking about her child. I don't know, Your Majesty," I said cautiously. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "The records. There is no definitive information on what happened to her after the ambush at Saren Station." Celera's gaze held mine, unwavering, and I felt the weight of centuries of grief compressed into her slender frame. Her breathing was measured, almost imperceptible, and I realized that in this moment, I was not speaking to a queen, but to a mother. "You will search for her," she said, a command veiled in a plea. "I do not care if it takes 1,000 cycles. Find her. Bring her back to me. I will wait." The words sent a shiver through me. This was more than a mission, it was a covenant. And yet, the truth was complicated. Liara had not vanished by accident. She had been taken, or perhaps chosen, a fate she had kept secret even from her mother. I nodded, suppressing the tremor in my voice. "I will do everything in my power, Your Majesty. But I must be honest, there may be obstacles beyond our understanding, dangers we cannot foresee." Celera's lips curved faintly, the closest she ever came to a smile. "Danger is my companion. I know it well." The first weeks were a blur of star charts, encrypted transmissions, and delicate negotiations with mercenaries, smugglers, and fringe colonies. Every lead, every whisper, brought me closer to Liara, or so I thought. The deeper I delved, the more complex the threads became. Liara had not merely survived. She had built a life hidden in plain sight, among those who would never willingly reveal her existence. Then came the message, a single transmission, coded in a dialect so old it was almost forgotten. It read simply, "I am alive. Do not speak my name yet." I stared at the screen, heart hammering, knowing that the choice I faced now was almost unbearable. To reveal Liara's existence to her mother too soon could place both of them in unimaginable danger. But keeping the secret meant betraying Celera's trust, the trust of the mother whose grief I could almost feel pulsing through the ship's cold corridors. I chose the middle path. I would speak, but carefully. When I returned to the observation deck, Celera was waiting, her figure silhouetted against the dark tapestry of space. I could sense the question lingering on her lips before she even spoke. "Have you found her?" I inhaled, steadying myself. "Your Majesty, I have found something. Someone. She is alive, though hidden. She has chosen a life away from your reach, at least for now. I believe she may return when the time is right, but forcing her hand could endanger both of you." Celira's hands flexed at her sides, the tension in her limbs as visible as her stoic expression. Then, softly, almost vulnerably, she asked, "Do you believe she would forgive me for waiting?" It was not a question of allegiance or politics or power. It was a question of a mother's heart, and I realized that my next words would shape the course of not just our mission, but the very fabric of the Queen's existence. "I believe she already has," I said. "She has chosen survival, and in that choice is a message of hope. She knows you would come for her, even now." Celira's eyes glimmered with something I could not name. Relief, perhaps, or a fragile hope that had been buried under years of despair. And then she did something I had never seen her do before. She stepped closer to the viewport, staring into the endless black. "Prepare the ship," she said after a long silence. "We will follow her trail. We will respect her choices, but I will not turn away from my daughter. Not now, not ever." The chase through the outer systems was relentless. Liara's path had been obscured, hidden among asteroid belts and the detritus of abandoned colonies. Every lead felt like a puzzle, every encounter with smugglers or exiled merchants revealing just enough to keep hope alive without giving the final answer. And then, in the forgotten reaches of the Halcyon cluster, we found her. She was living among a community of outcasts, human and Andari alike, teaching, healing, and quietly building a life that honored the mistakes and losses of the past. When I approached her, she was cautious, eyes sharp, aware of every movement. "Liara," I said softly, "your mother?" She cut me off, holding up a hand. "I know. She is searching. I have felt her reach across the void. But you must understand, I chose this. I needed to find myself before I could face her." I nodded, carefully, understanding the delicate balance we had to maintain. "She waits for you, but she also trusts you to make your own path. She wants to see you safe, not just returned." Her gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the girl I had heard so much about in the Queen's stories. "Then I will go," she said quietly, "but only when I am ready." The journey back to the Vigilant was tense, but unspoken, a silent agreement between us to honor Liara's autonomy while preparing Celira for the reunion she had dreamed of for years. When we finally arrived, Celira was waiting. The bridge of the flagship seemed smaller somehow, the vast emptiness of space pressing in around us. And then the moment came, the one that would be remembered in both human and Andari history. Liara stepped forward, eyes meeting her mother's. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Celira extended her arms, and Liara ran into them. The sound they made was not words, but a release, a culmination of a decade of fear, longing, and unspoken love. I stood to the side, heart pounding, aware that my role had been pivotal. The words I had chosen, the careful balance of truth and discretion, had allowed this reunion to happen without catastrophe. The Queen, the mother, finally held her daughter again. Celira looked over Liara's shoulder at me, her eyes glistening. Your words saved this," she said softly. "I feared the worst, but you." I shook my head, almost embarrassed by the weight of their gratitude. "I merely spoke what I believed. You, Your Majesty, had the courage to endure the waiting, and Liara had the strength to survive it." For the first time, I saw Celira smile fully, without restraint. The galaxy outside could be brutal, dangerous, unforgiving. But inside this small observation deck, a mother and her daughter had found each other again. Weeks passed, and the Vigilant became a hub of celebration and reflection. Celira worked with Liara to repair fractured alliances, strengthen trade routes, and mend diplomatic tensions that had festered during her absence. Liara, once lost to fear and necessity, found her voice as a leader in her own right, her perspective tempered by years of survival and independence. And I remained by their side, a witness and facilitator to the extraordinary power of hope and truth. The mission had been more than a task. It had been a lesson. Words mattered. Timing mattered. And sometimes, the smallest truths, spoken with care, could change the fate of empires and the hearts of those who ruled them. As the starship drifted through the glittering expanse of the Andari Quadrant, I understood something profound, that the universe, vast and uncaring as it seemed, had room for miracles. And that in the silence between the stars, a mother's love could echo louder than any cosmic storm. And so, the queen and her daughter faced the future together, not as sovereign and subject, but as mother and child, resilient, reunited, and forever changed. In the end, it was not force or politics that had shaped their destiny, but a single truth spoken at the right moment. My words had altered history, but their courage had written the future. And for the first time in decades, the void of space felt almost like home. In the weeks that followed, the Vigilant became a place of quiet restoration. Celira and Liara worked side by side, mending old alliances and rebuilding trust with the colonies that had once looked to the Queen for leadership. But more than that, they rebuilt each other. I often watched them from a distance, the way Celira would linger near Liara, her hand brushing against her daughter's in a fleeting, almost subconscious gesture, the way Liara's laughter, once buried under years of survival and fear, now filled the ship like sunlight through a hatch. The distance between mother and child had shrunk, not erased, but softened into something strong, enduring, and real. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly across the viewport, Celira approached me. Her eyes, those opalescent depths that had once held such longing and grief, now reflected peace. "Do you see it?" she asked softly. "The future, it's different now." I nodded. "It is. Because you did not give up. Because she did not give up. And because the truth was finally spoken." Celira smiled, the first true, unguarded smile I had ever seen.
Yes.
Because the truth can heal. It can reunite even what seems lost beyond reach. You gave me that gift. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had merely chosen my words carefully, but those words had changed everything. The fate of a mother, a daughter, and an entire empire. In the observation deck, mother and daughter sat side by side, gazing out at the infinite stars, silent in their newfound understanding. The hum of the ship was no longer oppressive but comforting, like a lullaby of possibility. And I knew, as I stepped back into the corridor, that the universe, vast, indifferent, and boundless, had finally made space for something extraordinary, the reunion of hearts that had never stopped searching for each other. Celira turned to me once more, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for helping me find her, for helping me find myself again." I only nodded, humbled. In that moment, I realized the true lesson of the stars, that sometimes, even in the infinite void, hope, courage, and the right words can light the darkest of spaces. And so, the Queen and her daughter faced the future together, not as rulers and subjects, but as mother and child, stronger, wiser, and unbreakably united. In the silence of the stars, a new story began, one of love restored, trust rebuilt, and a family finally whole. The galaxy outside had not changed, but inside the heart of the vigilant, everything had.